Well, let's start off by taking a look at some of the key findings related to reviving the European economy. The first point, if I could have the first slide, please. The first point is really that we actually don't have one European situation. There are a lot of countries in Europe, and you see the Eurozone countries up here, and the situation is clearly quite different in many of these countries, and we tend to forget that at times. We also don't remember all the time that many companies in Europe are actually doing very well. The bottom line in these companies is clearly strong. Their balance sheets are healthy. We'd like to see more growth in many of them, but there are some good things happening in Europe as well, and I think that's important to bear in mind. Now, while the various nation states indeed have different circumstances, there are nevertheless a few common themes coming out of the work we've been doing. The first one is that even more than last year, business executives across Europe do feel that the region's current low growth is a structural phenomenon. More than 75% of the respondents believe that the competitiveness gap in Europe is significant to other regions. About half believe that this gap will only increase over the next 10 years. So a pretty bleak view, frankly, on the development right now. Respondents across the board, they advocate an ongoing focus on limiting spending by member states and governments enforcing fiscal austerity. Not surprisingly, what we do find is that respondents who come from countries with lower budget deficits view this, take this view even stronger. So in Germany, for instance, 96% of the respondents feel that fiscal austerity is a really important thing. That's essentially every German respondent. In Southern Europe, it's like 65 to 70%, depending on which country you're looking at. So the numbers are still high, but significantly lower. And this is among the business executives. Our respondents believe that the structural nature of Europe's current low growth and fiscal austerity makes it, our respondents' belief around the continued focus on fiscal austerity really suggests that they picked side on one of the very difficult questions and prominent questions that we have in Europe right now. It's clear that the respondents believe that there is no opportunity for Europe to overcome the situation we have by spending our way back to growth. Instead, they do believe that structural adjustments are key. They believe that increasing social flexibility is key. And they believe that increased focus on managing debt is key. Many respondents clearly believe that the European economy is too rigid. Indeed, what they say is that the EU's mature economy in many ways is mirrored in a mature mindset with a lack of willingness to change, a yearning perhaps of the days that passed, a tendency to shut gates, and perhaps also too much a willingness to cling to entitlements. And perhaps this is one of the areas that is one of the bigger challenges for Europe going forward. There's been several comments earlier today about the need for seeing more hunger in Europe, more ambition in people. There's been many comments around the need for rebuilding confidence. And this, too, is clearly something that comes out in many of the insights from the survey work. Respondents clearly believe that the European institutions should focus more and more on monetary and fiscal policy issues. As you see on the slide, there's a clear majority suggesting that the EU should prevail over national governments on issues in these areas. There are really only two outlier countries, or maybe I should say 1.5 in the survey. One is the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, 55% would argue that national governments should prevail on monetary issues, and 59% would say that national governments should prevail on fiscal issues. Finland is the other outlier, and a big change from last year when we did this survey, where as many as 40% of Finnish business executives believe that national governments should prevail on fiscal matters. So those are the two exceptions from, across the universe of respondents. Now, respondents believe that the EU is a more credible enforcer of fiscal austerity than national countries are themselves. The European Union should be responsible for guiding and encouraging a transformation towards a union of competitive states with more balanced budgets. So it's up to national governments to translate and implement the EU directives regarding budgetary and monetary matters, turning them into concrete measures, national legislation, and local practices. So under this vision, Brussels would essentially set the framework and direction. Nation states and regions would detail and implement, very much as corporations work, where you have a headquarters setting strategy and direction, and the business units in the end implementing. We also looked into what business leaders think about different measures to resolve the Eurozone crisis. And this is an area where there's very split opinions around which measures are the right ones to take. Clearly, on the question of whether the Eurozone should increase or shrink, there are different thoughts. But it is striking that as many as a third of the respondents do believe that the Eurozone should be made smaller. So there's clearly at least a group of respondents who perceive that the macroeconomic benefits of a stronger core of nations is more valuable than the increased convenience and perhaps greater profits from having a larger zone with a common currency. Now, respondents from nations with a high rate of GDP growth and a better situation on the debt side are much more likely to support the shrinking Eurozone. 40% of German business executives believe we should shrink the Eurozone. The number is smaller for other AAA-rated countries, and not surprisingly, even less so for the countries in Southern Europe that are having most of the difficulties. Essentially, no one thinks the Eurozone should be abandoned. On the contrary, there's great support for the European project. There's great hope that the single market will prevail, that it will be improved as we go forward. We asked questions as well around some other measures. Respondents are entirely split on the question whether the European Union should pursue a strategy of quantitative easing in the same way as we've seen in some other markets. 40% of respondents strongly agree with that, and 40% strongly disagree with that. So a perfect split down the middle. We also asked questions around Eurobonds. And Eurobonds are, in a way, a special case. Non-Europeans support the concept because they see, at a whole, it would be beneficial for Europe. On average, European respondents agree as well. They're willing to show solidarity and move towards further monetary integration by accepting Eurobonds. 57% of respondents in the Eurozone agree with this notion, 18% disagree. Again, you'll see a split where some of the countries in Northern Europe that are the ones who would be, if you will, footing the bill, are less excited about this notion than ones in the South. And again, Germany stands out, and frankly, Finland comes out again as one of the countries most strongly opposed to that notion. So those are the key highlights. Thanks.